Hi, welcome to this video guide on how to use values and criteria in Lincoln-Douglas debate. My name is Christian Novak. I'm a debate coach here at Fargo South High School in North Dakota. And I love Lincoln-Douglas debate, and I love seeing new debaters getting to grapple with philosophy a little bit. So I'm very excited to help some new debaters or some returning debaters um, get in the mindset of how values and criteria work in Lincoln Douglas. And I'm hoping that this guide is going to be something that's a good refresher or at least a good exercise, no matter what your debate skill level is. So, whether you're a returning varsity LD debater here in North Dakota or a first timer, I want you to try to see if you can't get to our learning goal today. So by the end of this video, I will be able to analyze how a value and criterion work in an LD debate case. See if you can't be further along in that goal by the end of this video. So, if you are new to debate, your coach has probably told you about two different kinds of debate, or maybe you've just learned about them at the debate workshop. Public forum and Lincoln Douglas debate. So, what is the key thing that makes these two different, other than just the structural stuff that's different? I've got a partner versus I don't in Lincoln Douglas. What's the key thing that makes these different kinds of debate at their core? So, in public forum, the normal way to judge a round of public forum is just cost benefit analysis. I have an action or an attitude or a resolution of some kind, and I need to weigh that action. Good stuff versus the bad stuff that's gonna happen if we take that route or that action. And it doesn't really go more into specifics on that. Public forum typically talks a lot about practical costs and benefits. Literally, what is this going to cost us in dollars for the United States or some country to take on an action? Lincoln Douglas, part of the reason I love Lincoln Douglas is that it takes that assumption of public forum um, and really zooms in on it. So, in Lincoln Douglas, part of the debate is about deciding what should be valued most when we do that cost benefit analysis. Okay? So, in public forum, it's just kind of assumed to be a general cost benefit analysis. But in Lincoln Douglas, you get to tell your judge what thing should matter most in that cost benefit analysis. And I'm hoping in these next few slides, that statement is going to make a little bit more sense here. So, first, what I want us to do here, I'm going to actually ask you to do a little bit of thinking for me. So, values, if they are the core of Lincoln Douglas debate, what are they exactly? Values are just a judgment of what is important in the world. And there's all sorts of things that we count as important in the world, right? Something like justice, we value that. You know, we want to have a sense of justice in our world. We want to carry out our country in a just way. That's a value that fits perfectly in debate. We talk about justice all the time. But there's all sorts of other values too, like beauty. Beauty is totally a value. But you'll probably never see it in a debate case. And that's just by nature of the topics we do. I'm sure some topic, some art topic that we have in the distant future will have beauty as a value or something like that. But for now, I want you to think to yourself justice and beauty, two examples of values. I want you to think and list as many values as you can think of, just to get your brain in the right mind space. What are things that are judgments of what are important? Think of as many things as you can. Pause the video if you need to. I'm going to go to the next slide in about 5 seconds here. Okay. I've got a list here of some different values that many of us hold in our own lives or are just held generally in society. You see things like justice, like we talked about, beauty. You also see things like friendship, family, well being, security. So some are more specific than others, like happiness down here is pretty general, whereas safety up here is a little more specific, right? It's not just about how good and much joy you're able to get out of life, it's about how safe your body is, right? And so, of these values up here, there's some of these that you're going to see a lot more in debate. The ones I've circled up here are really common things that you'll see in debate cases. So functionally, what you're saying when you use one of these values is, when we go back to that cost-benefit analysis, I'm saying that justice is the most important part of that cost-benefit analysis. So even if it costs a little bit of moolah, financial power, to make that justice happen, that's okay, because justice is the most important thing. So, hopefully this core idea of the value is starting to stick in a little bit with you. Now let's add another layer. Criteria. This is something that very few debaters really understand their first few, even years of debate, honestly. I've always found the best way to think of criteria is as a measuring stick for your value. So a criterion is the measure that you're using to determine whether your value has been met. I'm going to do a little bit of a philosophy lesson here to help you see how this works. So justice, that value we talked about earlier. Most common definition for justice is just each person being given what they're due. You know, they get what they deserve. Okay? But now, what does that mean exactly? How do we know that justice has been met? Do I just like get a vibe on the room or on society and say, like, yep, we're more just now than we were earlier? Well, no. We're going to look to some philosophers to help us out. So, consider justice in two different ways here. So, there's two principles in philosophy, and you're going to start to see how philosophy and learning philosophy is super important in Lincoln Douglas. There's two ideas in philosophy that can help us see if we've met justice or not. So, rule of law over here and difference principle. Let me explain how these have very different takes on justice. Okay, so rule of law is basically the idea that no one is above or below the law. A just society is one that has laws and follows those laws consistently and without exceptions. So you can't be too rich to go down, or it doesn't matter that you stole something because you're in poverty. We're still going to charge you the same way as if you had stolen something just for fun. So rule of law says you achieve justice when the law is followed as it's written. No one's above it. Difference principle, on the other hand, has a different take on justice. Difference principle is an idea by a philosopher named John Rawls. And what Rawls had to say about justice was basically that the most just society makes decisions based on the ones who are the worst off in that society. So, for example, if I have a bunch of extra money in my society and I also happen to have a problem where millions of people are starving, the difference principle would say justice is only served if that money is going to go to that least well-off group in society. So in the difference principle, someone might say that that example of someone stealing because they're in poverty earlier, the difference principle might say that, well, really, a just society wouldn't punish them that severely because they are already getting just beaten up by the world. So, in response to that, the just move is to change the legal system or alter things in such a way that their lives are improved. So, like, we have the same idea of justice, but these two different criterions, rule of law and difference principle, can mean that justice is interpreted in a bunch of different ways. So, in your own cases for Lincoln Douglas, you'll say what your case is valuing the most and what your criterion is. So, once you actually get to the points, the contentions is what we call them in Lincoln Douglas or in debate generally, uh, you kind of have a theme. You have a road that you have said to your judge you're going to go down. All of my points are going to show you how justice is achieved on my side of the resolution through an interpretation of the rule of law. And then when you're writing the rest of that case, those body paragraphs or the contentions or points that are either supporting or negating the resolution, everything should connect back to that value and criterion. There's a good sample case that I'm also going to include as a resource for you guys on the C-STAND website. So if you want to see exactly how contentions can connect back to values and criterions, I highly encourage you to look over that sample case. It'll just help you get an idea of how this actually works when you write it out. So I'm not going to go too much into contentions and taglines and stuff like that, because that's something that's really similar in public forum and Lincoln Douglas debate. I wanted to make sure that by the end of this video, you had a really good chance to think about values and criterions. So remember, value is just something you think is important in the world. And in debate, in LD debate, you're saying that this is the most important thing to consider for the round. Justice is the most important thing. Equality is. Safety is. Whatever it might be. And then, because values are broad and not easily determined when you've met them, they're abstract, right? You use a criterion to help your judge see, okay, this is how you meet justice. This philosopher tells us how we meet justice. And that's how you set up the structure for the rest of your round. One last thing I should mention about values and criterions here is that once you get to the rebuttal stage of the round, you will actually clash your value against each other. So even though these are all things that we'd kind of consider to be good in society, no one would say friendship or family is a bad thing. You will want to have a reason why your judge should prefer your value over another one. Maybe it's a resolution about a government, and you mention specifically how a government's duty is to maintain justice. So that means your value is more important than progress, for example. So that's the other part of this value and criterion side of things. But I just wanted to make sure that you all have a good foundation of what is a value, what is a criterion, and how do these moving parts fit together. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope to see you in many a Lincoln Douglas debate rounds this season and in future debate years. Have a great time.